Welcome to Conversations with Sarah. I'm Sarah Reddan, creator of the SRTT Self-Care Club. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe to be notified of new episodes, and come find me at SRTT Self-Care on Facebook, and you can join my Facebook group for live recordings. Today I'm joined by Lisa. She's a nutritional therapist and a master practitioner in eating disorders, and she's going to share how she lost 5.5 stone by not dieting. Thank you for joining me, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really pleased to be here. So I want to add, I am a nutritional therapist and master practitioner in eating disorders, but I'm also a foodie and I love food. I love eating all food and it's really important to me. And I want everybody else to also feel that they don't need to ban foods from their diet. They can just enjoy what they eat.
Perfect. I love that. And I'm so glad that you said it at the beginning, because we were just talking beforehand. And it's so important to me that we move away from this kind of narrative of needing to be a particular size, and that health is accessible at all sides, and that we take sort of away from like morality of food and stuff like that. So that's why one of the reasons that weight loss hasn't been a big topic on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I checked out your social media, and some of the things that I'm like, I will stop following people for. I didn't see any of that on your social media, which is why you're here and speaking with me today.
Thank you. Well, I'm really
so
pleased
thanks
to
for
hear
coming
that.
along.
Well, in fact, when I started sort of practicing as a nutritional therapy, I was about weight loss, but actually I've really moved away from that. Well, sometimes, we need to manage our weight for health issues or whatever. But actually, I'm much more about disordered eating, which is chaotic eating. So that goes against your health. And that's the side that I really like to, that's the side that I support. It's not I'm supporting you to lose so many stone or whatever. And that might be a byproduct. But really what we're working on is the chaotic eating, the disordered eating, that not only works against your health, but it also works against your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So will you take me back to your story and share with me your journey? Because as you said, you lost weight, but you weren't dieting. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, we have to go right back to the beginning. So when I was a little girl, I was actually really, really skinny. Like my sister used to tell me I looked like a tap. You know, if I stood sideways and stuck my tongue out, the water would come out. You know, I was really, really tiny, and I could eat whatever I wanted, and I did. But it wasn't. You know, a lot of the way that I ate came partly from the rules that I grow up with. It's really interesting that so much of how we eat as adults is how we ate as children. So, for example, I wasn't allowed to leave the table until I'd eaten everything on my plate.
Yeah.
And in my day, it was because the Biafrans in Africa were starving, and how lucky was I to have this food, and etc., etc. And it wasn't about whether I was full. I just had to eat it.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, it's really hard not to finish everything on your plate, because that's what you've grown up with. So I was very much like that. But anyway, as I said, I was very skinny. When I was very young, I had a trauma. My elder brother, he passed away. And obviously, as a family, it affected us very much. And no judgment on my parents whatsoever. My parents are amazing, and they still are. They're still with me, and they're still amazing. But in those days, you know, you didn't have any counsellor, any grief counsellors to talk to. You didn't have any support like you can have now, except from family and friends. And my parents honestly did the best they could. But I was always told I was a good girl. You're such a good girl. You're not making a fuss. You're such a good girl. Yeah. So all my normal childhood stuff I swallowed. You know, I wasn't naughty. I was always impeccable. I was also very, very shy and not confident at all. That was me anyway. And I think that I started swallowing my feelings with food. My dad, on a Sunday, it was a treat day, and he would take us out to things like amusement arcades, or I don't know, I remember the amusement arcades. I can't think where else.
Yeah.
He'd always, the zoo, whatever it was. And my mum always, before we left the house, right, no sweets, I'm making lunch for you when you get home. And my dad used to buy us loads of sweets. My dad's a bit of a feeder, you know, he gets real pleasure from you eating, because that means he can too. And he used to, oh, go on, have some sweets. Don't tell your mum, you know, don't worry. And it would all be a secret kind of thing. And so when I started comforting myself with food, I did it in secret. So, for example, we would have lunch, and then after it was all cleared up, I'd go back in the kitchen and I'd sneak an ice cream, or I'd sneak a biscuit or whatever. And that wasn't an issue for me at all when I was really skinny. But when I started developing, it became an issue. So that I put on, I mean, I probably, when I look back at photos now, I don't think I was that big. It was probably that I was just bigger because I was developing, but I felt big and I felt really unhappy with myself. And again, my secret eating was out of control then. So all my lack of confidence at school, like I wasn't particularly academic, you know, not confident with friends, and then all the angst because I was a good girl and that I wasn't causing any fuss, whatever, everything was dealt with food. And gradually the weight went on. Well, not that gradually, actually. Within about three or 4 years, I really had gone up to that size. And I just hated myself. I really hated myself. And actually, if I go back, so when I started to get big, this was when I started dieting. I started dieting probably when I was about 14.
Yeah.
And I dieted well into my 20s. And when I look back now, I feel if I'd never dieted, I wouldn't have got to where I was.
Did it become that cycle of like the secret eating, binging kind of stuff, and then restricting to compensate for the fact that you've done that? Absolutely.
So it was, I would do things. So I think between 14 and 16, it was on my own. But, you know, I would count calories. I would just starve myself. I would, you know, you were always reading in magazines, and, you know, it was all about diet culture. It was about eating low fat. It was, you know, I would cut things out my diet, and I could do it. And I did lose weight. Always I lost a little bit of weight, whatever, but I couldn't, it was just not sustainable. And I would lose it. I'd put on more. It was harder to lose, etc. But yeah, that was my life. I was on diets. And then at school, I stayed for A-levels, and I had a very small sixth form, and we used to go on classroom diets. It was awful. And we were allowed into the local village to go shopping. There was one girl, we did Weight Watchers at that time, in carrots, for example, you could eat as many as you liked. And this girl turned orange because she ate so many carrots. Like, she had an orange tone to her skin. If she ever watches this video, she'll absolutely kill me.
Well, in my family, there is a story of a relative doing the carrot diet and going orange. So I think it was quite a thing in the time.
We did the Atkins diet. We did, and one of the things we did was we used to take a laxative that was made of chocolate.
Wow. So it really was very, very disordered and not at all based in eating nutritional food. It was just lose weight at any cost.
Absolutely.
At what point did that change?
It changed, actually. I went to university. I went on holiday and I went backpacking with a friend, and that was when I was my biggest. But we didn't eat in the same way when we were backpacking. We ate quite well, actually. We, you know, probably not enough. And I didn't drink alcohol when I was at that age. That was a later development, but and so I lost a little bit of weight when I was there. And then I went to university and I lived with one of my friends from school who had been dieting with me, and she was in the same position as me. We both were, round about the biggest we'd ever been. And when I was there, somebody introduced me to, it sounds really weird, healthy eating, not dieting, but it was about healthy eating.
Yeah.
And I started going out with my now husband when I was at uni, but he wasn't there. He used to come and visit me on weekends. And so during the week, I used to eat healthy, what I considered healthy. And on the weekends when he was there, I just ate what I now call normal. And I don't like those words, but I can explain to you what it meant. But so it wasn't that I was restricting in the week. I was just eating nutritious food. So, and I wouldn't miss meals, and I wasn't following any diet at all. It was just, I would have breakfast, I would have lunch, and I would have dinner. And on the weekends, when my husband came to see me, we'd go out to a restaurant, and we used to go to this place where they were doing, I don't know, 3 courses for £3.95. You can't imagine that now, can you?
No.
My age. So you had a starter, main course, dessert, and I would eat what I want, and sometimes I'd have dessert, and sometimes I give it to him.
Yeah.
And gradually the weight just sort of came off. And it wasn't until much later, and I've continued that way of eating, but it wasn't till much later when I studied nutrition, and then I got interested in disordered eating and eating disorders, that I have sort of built on that. So first of all, oh my goodness, that makes sense. But also I've built on it, and I've got a whole lot more skills that I use on myself.
Yeah.
So that the food, what I eat, is just not an issue, and I don't cut anything out my diet at all.
When you initially made that shift then, was you aware of kind of all of the other stuff that was going on for you? So the conditioning messages that you had about emptying your plate, and like just how unhealthy the disordered eating habits you'd formed with the dieting were? Or was it just a case of you were introduced to this new way of eating and it just clicked, made sense, you felt better, your body was being given the nutrition that it needed, and so you just continued it?
So it was just that I continued it. And I have to be totally honest, I haven't been perfect all the time. So we're going back quite a few years, 30 odd years now. And there's things that have changed. Some things have changed since I've been educated in this field, and some of them just naturally changed. So, for example, I used to weigh myself at least once a day, but 3 or 4 times a day, honestly, because I was so neurotic and paranoid about my weight. Well, now that doesn't happen. I never recognized about feeling hungry and feeling full. My eating, when it was chaotic, wasn't about that. It was about eating the biscuits. It was about what I was eating, not about hunger and fullness, which it is now. So it's things that I've also, I started with, if you like, the healthy eating, and then not on weekends. And I kept that up for many years. And then it's gradually other things fell into place that I realized, and that I've built on. And then as I've educated myself, I've built on them further.
And has it been sort of, because we know there's other things that affect our weight other than just what we eat. Yeah. So what kind of, trying to ask in a way without sort of saying, oh, tell me, like, this isn't therapy, so you don't need to tell me all of the stuff, but you say sort of, as you went through the journey, I'm trying to pinpoint kind of how it was for you, because I think when people are caught in the idea of dieting, and that their body needs to be a certain way, and that can only be achieved by restrictive eating, people don't necessarily recognize that there's so much going on. Like, we've talked about the conditioning, we've talked about you know, how we're influenced by stuff, and there's, you know, emotions, and like you said, swallowing things down, and there's all of this stuff goes on. So it's what I'm trying to invite you to do, but in a very clumsily way, is help me understand when you understood that those things were a factor, and how it helped your journey, or what work you did to kind of break through that bit.
Okay, so part of that, so with one of the things, there's quite a few, one of the things, I was influenced very strongly by other people and the way other people ate. So for example, if the person next to me say, well, hey, I've been on a diet and I've lost you know, a stone, in the old days I immediately felt that I had to be on that diet. Once I broke through with the healthy eating, not because I lost the weight in a way, but because I was enjoying the way I was eating. Honestly, that's what really made the difference. And because I wasn't missing out on anything, because I wasn't restricting. If I wanted a cake, a piece of cake, I'd have it. But I didn't feel I had to eat the whole cake because I could have another piece tomorrow. Does that make sense? So
yeah, I mean, absolutely makes sense to me, and it's alongside what I think and what I sort of talk about when I talk about this sort of stuff. That's where I think a lot of the issue is, when you restrict eating and you can't have something because it's not healthy, or there's too many calories, or whatever kind of morality you've attached to that food, or whatever sort of emotion you've attached to that food, or all the other stuff, rather than it just being a piece of food, it suddenly becomes like all consuming, and like, oh, I can't eat cake, I'm being good today, oh, I'm being naughty today, I'm going to eat cake, and because I'm being naughty, I'm going to eat not just a little bit of cake until the craving is sated, I'm going to eat the whole cake, then I'm going to feel guilty about that I've eaten the cake, and then because I feel guilty about the fact that I've eaten the cake, I might as well just eat all the cakes and all the food and all the things and feel terrible about who I am as a human being, all because I've restricted what I'm allowed to eat. It's like, I so want to be able to help people like understand that you can move away from that, which is why you're here talking to me, because you've done it and that's what you support people with.
But also, the cake is not bad food.
No, it's
there
just
is
cake.
No such thing of good and bad food. Cake is really delicious, and there is no reason that we can't eat it. And it's just that thing, we don't need to eat it all the time. But if you wanted one slice of cake every single day, that would be no bad thing. No. It's when we overeat it. And the other thing that my head used to be telling me is, oh, I've been bad today, but it's okay because I'll start again tomorrow.
Yeah. And
I don't do that anymore. I just eat what I want to eat, and I enjoy what I want to enjoy.
It's so ingrained in our language. I went up to my local shop recently and I bought some bits and pieces that were on offer. There was chocolate that I knew my partner was like, there was chocolate I knew that one of my children would like, there was something else and something else. And it was so interesting how the lady behind the counter spoke to me about the food. And I was like, and even then I'm like, I don't attach morality to food. She's like, oh, I couldn't have this bad food in my house, I'd need to eat it all. And when I thought about it, it's like, actually, none of this is for me. I hadn't actually bought anything for myself because there wasn't anything that I wanted to have. And to me, it doesn't impact me because, you know, that's definitely their stuff. And I did feel the need to say something because I'm me and I just do. But it's just, that exchange can be quite damaging, and told me so much about their relationship with food. It's like, oh.
Absolutely.
But we often don't realise the power of this language and the way that we attach the morality to food.
It's really interesting, and because I said it to Cambridge children, so I've got 2 little grandchildren, and I really try, and it's something I'm still learning, so I don't want anybody thinks that I think I'm perfect in the way that I eat. No, I still have challenges. So with my grandchildren, you have that thing of, oh no, come on, you need to eat your vegetables, and you need to, and yes, they do, but they don't get a dessert because they've eaten their vegetables.
Yeah.
They get a dessert because they're still hungry. Does that make sense? So, and the dessert may be a banana or an apple, but it also could be a cake, or it also could be I don't know. They might be given a packet of crisps, or they might be given a salad. And I have to, and I don't want to teach them that they get, if they eat everything on their plate, they're then going to get ice cream, because that's what I was taught. And therefore, that food, that ice cream, automatically has a position, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's much more, well, are you still hungry? Yeah, then okay, you can have dessert. And you have what the dessert is, that sometimes you'll have ice cream and sometimes you'll have fruit. And yes, fruit is nutritious, ice cream isn't. They both taste yum.
Yeah.
And I have to say, and it's not my doing, it's my daughter's doing, but they eat everything, and they do eat what other people would would call the treats, and they do eat their vegetables, and they do eat fruit. And we're really lucky, because lots of children don't.
Yeah.
It's more, it's more the messages that I want them to get.
Yeah, I think when you take that kind of the good and the bad and the all of that, it's exciting to get ice cream at the end of it all. It just shifts it, doesn't it? It shifts that energy, and it just, we know that if we eat this nutritional food, we feel a bit better, we have a bit more energy, our skin looks better, we can do whatever. So if we eat too much of the other type of food, then maybe I don't feel so great, or I'll be a bit sluggish or whatever. But it's conscious choice. As an adult, you make a choice.
Absolutely.
As an adult with children, you're educating your children to understand and make healthy choices. I think as soon as you start restricting in any way, it does become problematic. And I think there's studies now, isn't there, that if we just let kids take what they want, for the most part, as long as they're being provided with the kind of nutritional food, that often will be the choice. It's when we go, no, you can't have sweets, you can't have chocolate, that's not good for you, that makes it this sort of more desirable kind of, let me
I want that
stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's nothing, my granddaughter, I'll say, she'll tell me, I went so had an ice cream, I'm going, lovely, is it delicious? So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not perfect, so for example, when they want ketchup, they have to have my homemade variety. I just can't buy the stuff in the bottle. But that's where my nutritional therapy comes into it, and I get a bit, OTT. But most things, I looked after them yesterday, and they shared quavers. It's absolutely fine. I've got no problem, because I know then for dinner they're going to eat something nutritious. And I know I'm lucky that they eat nutritious food, and there are some kids that just won't, when they're young. But it's about getting them to try it. It's not actually, give them half a teaspoon of something, and say, and then the reward is, and the reward doesn't need to be food, but the reward is for trying it. Oh my goodness, that was so brilliant that you tried that food. Right, let's go and read a story, let's go and do this. That's the other thing. I really try not to always make the reward food. So yeah, but getting back to something else that you said, so when I started my healthy eating, for want of a better way of expressing it, journey, it's really interesting that that nutritious food started to taste better to me. Because I think that when you eat a load of processed stuff, especially that's high in sugar, you kill your taste buds. So they do say that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. I mean, there's lots of research on that as well. And I think it's part of it is because the more you eat, the more you want. Yeah. Because the more you need to get that high, if you like, from eating it. So whereas before you might have been happy to eat 2 biscuits, now you need 4 to get the same level, and then you need 6 and whatever. And I found, because I was still eating them, but not in the same quantities, that when I ate normal vegetables, for example, my tongue would start responding to this. I got a lot more than I had been from eating nutritious food. It just tasted better.
Yeah, and that's it. Once you're enjoying it, you want to eat more of it. I think one of the things I talk about, because a lot of my stuff is like mindfulness, so it
Yeah.
is mindful eating. So
Yeah.
actually really paying attention to what you're eating. So I eat anything and everything that I want to eat. I don't restrict anything.
Mm.
But people are always really shocked that I won't eat things that I'm not enjoying. Like if I'm hungry and that's the only thing available, I
Mm.
will eat just enough, just
Yeah.
enough that I'm not gonna, I need the energy, whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, that's been a big shift for me, a big thing for me. It's like I'm not going to eat poorly prepared food. I'm not going to eat like a cake just because it's a cake if I don't enjoy it.
No.
I love fruits and vegetables. I love Brussels sprouts. I like the things that people don't necessarily, but just because something's that kind of trying to, you know how you go out and you have your like meal
Yeah.
and whatever. It's like if it's not giving me nutritional value and I'm getting no pleasure from eating it, why
Yeah.
would I eat it? Why would I eat it?
Exactly.
Just,
Absolutely.
and that was a
And
big thing for me, because again, like you, it was that if it's on your plate,
you have
be
to eat.
polite, finish it. And I would eat past full, and then you're like, I'm not even enjoying this food. So I'm
Yeah.
like, why?
I used to have a friend, and she would only ever eat half of what I put on her plate. And I was just like, I was like a bit gobsmacked. How can you not finish it? Never mind. I think it's that thing that I never used to tune in. It wasn't ever about being hungry and being full. It was just about the food.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's quite that became quite different.
It's really interesting, isn't it, when you start to unpick the stuff that you've been told, and actually recognizing that, oh, I'm eating this food just because it's there.
Yeah.
Just because someone has served it to me and I have to be polite, I have to be the good girl, I have to finish the plate. I can't possibly complain. Leaving some would be rude.
Absolutely.
And it does really shift. But it takes that inner work. So what has helped you along the way with the inner work?
Um, well, I'm much more confident than I was. I mean, I am still shy, but
Yeah.
I am much more confident in my opinions, and I'm still, it sounds really stupid. I'm still a good girl. I am still a
Yeah.
good girl. I don't like to rough, but that's part of me. But I think no, I'm going to tell you what sort of thinking about it now. The biggest difference is I understand why I've eaten like I've eaten. And it wasn't because of the work I've done as a nutritional therapist. It was because I was really unhappy, and I had to look back and think, well, why am I like that? And why did I used to do that? And I think for me, as you said, unpicking my story and understanding that it wasn't because I was greedy, and it wasn't because, I was inferior to other people. It was actually things that happened around me affected how I thought, not only about situations. I mean, overeating and undereating are coping strategies.
Absolutely.
And for me in my life, like, I had to cope with a big bereavement, and and watch my parents, be devastated, and all things in my life. And my way of coping and soothing myself was food. And I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be a trauma like I had. It can be something that's just traumatic to you. It could be somebody called you names at school. It could be that you were really underconfident, or you were bullied at school. It doesn't have to be a major trauma for us to find a different way of soothing ourselves. But and I think that was it. When I understood that it wasn't because there was something wrong with me, it was I was trying to find a coping strategy. That released an enormous weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, and it's that understanding of self, isn't it, that really, I think, does make a difference with any habit that you change in. I think with food and sort of the relationship to weight, it becomes steeped in so much, as we've said before, of the societal messaging around stuff. It's really acceptable in society to have disordered eating, as long as you look a certain way.
Absolutely.
And if you don't fit the aesthetic of what we currently as a society say is helpful, then there can be narrative around, as you said, the stuff. And actually, for most people understand to a degree how to eat healthy. Most people understand to a degree body movement is good for us. But we don't understand necessarily how stress impacts us, how not sleeping impacts us,
Definitely.
how
our hormones.
Yeah.
And that if we're not giving our body the nutrients it needs, that our brain is going to be driving us to eat foods that are high in sugar or high in fat or whatever it is, because it's saying, oh my goodness, we're in a famine. We need, or I need this food to function, and it drives us to have it. So there's lots of, there's so many things that keep us stuck in the way that we eat. But I just want to make one point, because I think it's really important that when I swapped to my healthy eating journey, it actually, at that time, it really wasn't about the weight loss. It was about changing the way that I eat, because the way that I eat was making me really unhappy, and it wasn't working, and I didn't feel good. And it was gradual as well. Wasn't suddenly I turned to vegetables and whatever else I was eating. It was a gradual incorporation, if you like. It wasn't about what I took away. It was about what I added in.
Yeah.
And my goal changed, really. I didn't think about the weight loss as being the main goal. It was about helping myself to feel better. And the weight loss was an add-on. And so I think that's really important, that the disordered eating wasn't working for me, and that's what I changed.
And if we're honest, disordered eating doesn't work for anyone, really. No. Because it's just like you say, it's just a coping skill. It's a coping skill for other stuff that's going on, and being able to recognize what is actually going on. Or it can be an indication of not enough sleep, not enough, like there's a hormone imbalance, there's things going on. I think it's so important that we kind of really open our mind and move away from this narrative of, oh, well, if your body's carrying a bit too much weight, just exercise, cut all of this stuff out, you'll be fine. Like, no, there's actually lots of other things that we can investigate that's going on. Some people just occupy bigger bodies and can't make an assumption that all they do is eat all day, because that is flawed. And there's all this emotional stuff that goes on, and it's just that's for me, like, one of the things that I want people listening to kind of really start to be sort of mindful about your own attitudes that you've got towards bigger bodies, towards food, and the way that you're eating, and all of those things that are going on. So I know you say, like, it wasn't about weight loss, it was about sort of eating well, and you have lost all of this weight, and you've maintained your health, and maintained sort of a comfortable existence for yourself. So what sort of, how has that been to sort of, how difficult has that been?
When I dieted, it was so difficult. It was impossible. The stress wasn't only losing the weight. Then you got that euphoria. Well, hey, I've lost half a stone. And then you got that thing of, oh my goodness, I can't maintain this. And it all goes on again. And when I changed the way that I ate and the way that I thought about food, in that sense, it wasn't difficult. So once I stopped dieting and I gave myself permission to have food, all food, that side of it wasn't difficult, and it isn't difficult now.
No.
because I eat what I want to eat, and I eat when I'm hungry, and I stop when I'm full, and that's it. I choose it. I've got choices now. So I choose to eat nutritious food most of the time because I love it.
Yeah.
I know it's doing me good. Yes, my health matters to me, but I know it's doing me good. But I really enjoy it. But I don't actually enjoy crisps, but I've got a sweet tooth. I enjoy ice cream. And when we're away on holiday, I have ice cream every day. I enjoy wine. I drink wine. I don't drink it every day. And I don't drink it to excess because I can have it when I want it.
Yeah.
But all of that, it just, so in that sense, maintaining it now, I don't find it, I just do. And to be honest, I don't, if my trousers get a bit tighter, so if I go away and I wanted to have chips every day, I could have them. And I imagine, because I don't eat them every day, that my clothes might be a bit tighter when I come home. But because that's fine, because as soon as I'm not eating them every day again, because they're not here and I don't really want them, they get looser again. It's not something I really think about anymore, and it's not something I'm really conscious of anymore, because I just eat the way that I eat. And you know what? It frees up so much time.
It feels like there's so much more peaceful existence, that like when you talked about how it was for you with the like, it just felt like there's just panic all the time, panic about could I eat this, can I not eat that, I'm going to eat this, I can't eat that, and hiding and all of the secrecy and all of the other stuff that goes on, whereas now it's just like, it is food, I eat
food, and it's food, and I love food. So if I'm going to a social occasion, I don't have to worry beforehand. You know, there was that thing before, you were going to a restaurant, I won't eat all day, and then I can eat whatever I want in the evening. No, I might not choose a dessert at lunchtime because I know I'm going to have one in the evening, but it's always a choice. And so I don't have to worry. There's no stress involved.
Yeah. And it's conscious choice now. You're making conscious choice, as opposed to being driven by all of the other stuff that was going on for you.
Exactly. So, yeah. And so it just works.
I feel like we're probably at time. Have you said everything that you wanted to say? Have you shared everything that you wanted to share about sort of your story and how things have shifted for you? Your kind of details will be in the show notes anyway, so if people are interested in kind of learning a little bit more about you, they can find it on the show notes. So I would love to know, is there anything you want to kind of leave people listening with to take into their day with them today?
Yes, I would like to say, give yourself permission to eat whatever that thing that you've been restricting yourself from is. But there's one rule. I would like you to eat it sitting at the table, on a plate, and I always say treat it like a royal occasion. So look at it, love it, eat it really slowly, nibble it, just enjoy it. And when you think, actually I'm full now, stop. You don't have to finish it, because you can always do the same thing again tomorrow.
It's brilliant. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to those that have listened. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I would love to connect with you, so come and find me on Facebook at SRTT Self-Care. I'll be back next Wednesday with a new guest. Until then, stay curious and be kind to yourself.